Okay, the guy. And I'm going to read from 13 Reasons Why. My most recent book is The Future of Us, which is another teen book. Yeah, The Future of Us. It's weird because, like, when I was in high school, this probably would have been my favorite book. Like, this is exactly what I liked to read, this kind of humor and stuff. And I probably never would have read this in high school, because I didn't like serious books, so it's kind of weird. But yeah, so I'm going to read from 13 Reasons Why, but it's hard to read from this as one person, so I'm going to be assisted. She will play the girl part, I will play the guy part. Okay. A shoebox-sized package is propped against the front door at an angle. Our front door has a tiny slot to shove mail through, but anything thicker than a bar of soap gets left outside. A hurried scribble on the wrapping addresses the package to Clay Jensen, so I pick it up and head inside. I take the package into the kitchen and set it on the counter. I slide open the junk drawer and pull out a pair of scissors. Then I run a scissor blade around the package and lift off its top. Inside the shoebox is a rolled up tube of bubble wrap. I unroll that and discover 7 loose audio tapes. Each tape has a dark blue number painted in the upper right-hand corner, possibly with nail polish. Each side has its own number. 1 and 2 on the first tape, 3 and 4 on the next, 5 and 6, and so on. The last tape has a 13 on one side with nothing on the back. Who would send me a shoebox full of audio tapes? No one listens to tapes anymore. Do I even have a way to play them? The garage, the stereo on the workbench. My dad bought it at a yard sale for almost nothing. It's old, so he doesn't care if it gets coated with sawdust or splattered with paint. And best of all, it plays tapes. I drag a stool in front of the workbench, drop my backpack to the floor, and sit down. I press eject on the player. A plastic door eases open, and I slide in the first tape.
Hello, boys and girls. Hannah Baker here, live and in stereo.
I don't believe it.
No return engagements, no encore, and this time, absolutely no requests.
No, I can't believe it. Hannah Baker killed herself.
I hope you're ready, because I'm about to tell you the story of my life. More specifically, why my life ended. And if you're listening to these tapes, you're one of the reasons why.
What? No.
I'm not saying which tape brings you into this story, but fear not, if you receive this lovely little box, your name will pop up, I promise. Now, why would a dead girl lie? Hey, that sounds like a joke. Why would a dead girl lie? Answer, because she can't stand up.
Is this some kind of twisted suicide note?
Go ahead, laugh. Oh well, I thought it was funny.
Before Hannah died, she recorded a bunch of tapes. Why?
The rules are pretty simple. There are only 2. Rule number 1, you listen. Number 2, you pass it on. Hopefully, neither one will be easy for you.
That's what it was.
Just kind of like a brief synopsis to tell you what the book's about. Eve takes place, this specific book, takes place 16 years in the future after a plague, 16 years after a plague has wiped out most of the population. And we find Eve, our main character. She has been raised in a walled-in compound. They call it a school. And she's been raised by all women, it's all girls inside the school. And she's been taught, her curriculum's a little bit skewed, she's been taught to fear men. Sorry guys in the room, don't hate me. She's also been taught that she can never go outside the school wall, that there are wild gangs and there are dog packs, and she has no survival skills, and going beyond the wall would be death for her. She could never ever do it, and they've really taught them to fear everything, to keep control over them. So she believes that after her graduation, she will go across the compound and she will start this trade school, and she will learn a trade, and eventually she will go to the city of Sand, where a bunch of the survivors from the plague are starting to rebuild America, and they call it the New America. So the night before her graduation, though, the first chapter of this book opens, and she, through a series of events, finds out that these girls are not going to be going to a trade school, that they're actually being used for a very dark purpose. And she escapes the school. And that moment, when she goes beyond the wall, is really when her life begins. So I'm going to read a part. I picked this passage because I'm pretty sure, I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm pretty sure you won't fall asleep during it. one of the things that really popped in my mind when I was writing these. So a little setup, she's been outside the wall for about 10 days, I think. And again, remember, she has no survival skills. She's had like a very sheltered existence. So she comes across a bear cub, and you can imagine this is a bad situation. So I think that's all you really need to know. Okay, so she goes, yes, you are just like Winnie, I said. He started off toward the side of the trail to sniff at some more old cans. I wondered if Arden would let me bring him back to the house. Maybe we could keep him there for a while. I never had a pet before. I reached for him again, but pulled my hand back when I heard a deafening growl. A massive bear stood on her hind legs just off the road. She towered above me. The cub padded over to her, and she opened her mouth again, showing her teeth. I straightened up, the hair on the back of my neck bristling. Tremors shook my hands. The bear charged forward, her head down, and my thin arms came up in a pathetic block. I braced myself for attack when something struck her suddenly in the face. It was a rock. As the bear growled again, another stone struck her head and she fell back, her massive bottom meeting the road. I turned around. A filthy, dirt-caked boy sat atop a black horse, clutching a slingshot in his hand. His skin was tanned a reddish-brown, and his muscular chest was speckled with mud. You better climb on, he said, tucking the slingshot into the back pocket of his pants. This isn't over. I glanced back at the bear, who was shaking her head, momentarily stunned. I didn't know which was worse, to be killed by some brute animal or be taken off with a wild Neanderthal on horseback. The boy reached out his hand. His fingernails were crusted with black. Come on, he urged. I took his hand in my own and he pulled me up behind him onto the horse's bare rump. He smelled of sweat and smoke. With one hi-yah, we took off down the moss-covered road. I kept a hand around his chest and turned to look at the bear. She was up, running after us, her giant brown body heaving with the effort. The boy held onto the cracked leather reins, steering the horse off the main strip and into a wide field. The bear was so close she snapped at the horse's tail. Faster, you have to go faster, I cried. The horse picked up its pace, but the bear was still too close with no sign of tiring. I could feel my legs slick with sweat, slipping. I clung to the boy, my fingernails digging into his skin. He leaned forward and the wind whipped over us. The bear snapped its vicious jaws again. I looked over the boy's shoulder and saw a ravine ahead. It was nearly 5 feet across and looked like an old sewage canal, 15 feet deep. Watch out, I cried, but the boy kept on, even faster than before. Why don't you let me do the driving, he yelled over his shoulder. Behind us, the bear ran at full speed, her dark eyes locked on the horse's rear. Don't, I said softly as we sped toward the ravine. If we didn't make it, the bear would surely maul us alive. We'd be trapped at the bottom of the canal with no place to hide. But the horse was already lifting off, its front legs stretching toward the other side of the cliff. My stomach rose and fell. For one moment, I was weightless, and then there was the hard impact of hooves on ground. I looked out onto the field of marigolds around us. We had made it across. I turned back one last time, afraid the bear would be upon us, but she'd slipped at the ledge. The last thing I heard was her angry roar as she skidded down the gravelly cliff and landed hard in the ravine's muddy pit. It was a long while before either of us spoke. Now, out of danger, I pushed back on the rear of the horse, trying to get as far away from the boy as possible. He was a strange breed of man, part wild, not the sophisticated kind who graced the pages of The Great Gatsby, nor did he seem like the violent men I had encountered on my first day in the wild. He had saved me, at least. I could only hope it wasn't for some nefarious purpose.